Think about the last time you saw a statistics chart. It probably had a neat, symmetrical little square showing type 1 and type 2 errors side by side, like they are two of a kind. But that symmetry is a complete illusion, and understanding why is the key to making smart decisions in data science, product design, and machine learning. When we talk about type 1 error, our false alarm rate, we are dealing with a declared number we choose ourselves before we even look at a single piece of data. That is usually our standard 5%. But type 2 error, the chance of completely missing a real effect, is a ghost. It has no fixed number on your screen, in your reports, or in your head, because its value depends entirely on how big the real effect actually is. This lopsided trade-off is why blindly accepting that standard 5% threshold can quietly destroy your project, and why the phrase "no significant difference" rarely means what you think it does. To see this, imagine you just changed the color of a checkout button on your website, and you are running an A/B test to see if it actually boosts sales, or if any change you see is just random noise wearing a costume. The null hypothesis is the boring starting point, the idea that your new button does absolutely nothing. Because this hypothesis is specific, we can make concrete predictions. If the button does nothing, any differences we measure are just sampling wobble. If we divide that difference by its standard error, the amount a number like this naturally bounces around, we get a neat bell curve centered exactly on 0, with a standard deviation of 1. Now, we draw a decision line. If our result lands past this line, we declare the effect is real. If it falls short, we do not. Since we only care if the new button is better, we put a single line on the right side of the curve where only 5% of the bell curve lies beyond it. That threshold lands exactly at 1.645 standard errors. That shaded 5% sliver is alpha, our type 1 error rate. We did not measure it, we declared it. We computed it with absolutely zero data, no knowledge of the real effect, and without even running our test. But try doing that for our other mistake, the type 2 error. We want the probability of missing a real effect, the chance that our result lands short of our line in a world where the button actually works. To calculate that, we need to know where the button's true effect sits. But the alternative hypothesis only says the effect is not 0, and not 0 is not a location on a graph. There is no curve to draw, which means there is no area to compute, and the type 2 error remains a ghost. The only way to pin down this second mistake is to specify a concrete effect size. Let us say the new button is so good that its true effect sits 3 standard errors to the right of 0. Now, we have a second bell curve centered on 3, identical to the first, but shifted. The type 2 error, which we call beta, is the piece of this second curve that falls to the left of our decision line. It represents a real effect looking so ordinary that we walk right past it. With our line still at 1.645, that missed detection area is about 9%. But if the true effect is smaller, that second bell curve slides back towards the first, the overlap grows, and beta climbs. There is no single type 2 error rate for a test, there is only beta at an effect size you are willing to commit to. Now, watch what happens when we get nervous about false alarms and slide our decision line further to the right to protect ourselves. The tail beyond it shrinks, so alpha drops exactly as we want it. But that line also sweeps through our second bell curve. Because the second curve has most of its mass in that region, beta climbs by a massive amount. If we look at the numbers, the lopsidedness is brutal. At an alpha of 5%, we miss a real 3 standard error effect about 9% of the time. If we tighten our alpha to 1%, which sounds like sensible caution, we save 4 points of false alarms, but we pay for it with 16 points of missed detections, because our miss rate jumps to 25%. If we tighten our threshold to 1 in 1,000, we will miss a real effect 54% of the time. Extreme caution makes our test worse than a coin flip at noticing the very thing we built it to find. This is why statistical testing is always about choosing your poison, and blindly using a 5% threshold is incredibly dangerous. If you are designing the emergency braking system for a self-driving car, which mistake are you trying to drive to zero? Are you more worried about a false alarm that causes an unnecessary stop, or a missed obstacle that leads to a crash? And if you are approving a rare cancer treatment, which threshold are you tightening? Pause the video right now, and drop a comment with your answer, because the right trade-off depends entirely on the world you are operating in. To truly understand this trade-off, we have to look at the flip side of beta, which is 1 minus beta. This is the power of the test, the probability of actually catching a real effect when it exists. Because beta depends on the true effect size, power is not a single number, it is a whole curve that maps our ability to detect everything from tiny nudges to massive shifts. To see how this plays out in the real world, imagine two different teams testing the exact same checkout button, which genuinely provides a small but valuable lift. Both teams use the standard 5% alpha threshold. The first team only routes a modest slice of traffic to the test for a few days. Because their sample size is small, the true effect in their sample is worth only one standard error, giving them a measly 26% power. That means they have a 74% miss rate. The second team runs the test across their entire site for a month, gathering 16 times as much traffic. Since standard error falls like 1 over the square root of the sample size, 16 times the data cuts their error to a quarter of what it was. The exact same lift is now worth 4 standard errors to them. If both teams get a statistic that falls short of the threshold, they will both write down the same sentence, no significant difference. But those sentences carry completely different weight. For the first team, being wrong was the expected outcome, happening 3 times out of 4, so their negative result tells us almost nothing. For the second team, their chance of catching the lift was 99%, so their negative result is nearly decisive in proving the lift is negligible. A negative result never says there is no effect, it simply says the effect was too small to be seen with the sample size you had. But what if you do not want to choose between a false alarm and a misdetection? Is there a way to escape this trade-off? Yes, but it requires data. If you leave your decision line exactly where it is and quadruple your sample size, your false alarm rate stays at 5% because the null curve is standard by construction and does not care about your sample size. But that extra data shifts and narrows the alternative curve. Quadrupling your data halves the standard error, which effectively doubles the distance between your two curves. If we take our alternative that sat 3 standard errors out, quadrupling the sample increases that separation to 6 standard errors. Now, if we place our decision line at 3, exactly halfway between the two curves, our mistakes become symmetrical mirror images. Both our alpha and our beta drop to about 1 in 750. We did not trade one error for the other, we brought both of them down by more than a factor of 30. The invoice for that escape simply came out to 4 times the data. But there is a hidden leak in this statistical framework that most people completely miss. Alpha is a rate per test, and those rates accumulate. If you run a single test at a 5% threshold, you have a 1 in 20 chance of a false alarm. But if you run 20 independent tests over the same dataset, say, testing 20 different button variants, or tracking 20 different metrics, the chance of at least one false alarm lighting up is not 5% anymore. It is 64%. A room containing absolutely nothing but random noise will hand you a significant result more often than not, and every single one of those false alarms will carry a p-value under 0.05. The standard repair for this is the Bonferroni correction, where we divide our alpha threshold by the number of tests. So, 20 tests each get an alpha of 0.25%, which drags our overall false alarm rate back down to 5%. But look at what that repair does to our power. By pushing our decision lines so far out, our power against that same 3 standard error alternative drops from 91% to 58%. We protected ourselves from noise, but we severely underpowered our ability to detect reality. Ultimately, the standard 0.05 alpha threshold is not a mathematical law, it is just a convention that hardened into a habit. Adopting it without thinking silently announces that a false alarm is always the mistake you would rather avoid, regardless of the consequences. But statistical testing is not about finding absolute truth, it is about choosing which mistakes you can live with. If you found this explanation helpful, hit that like button, subscribe, and check out our next video on confusion matrices to see how these exact statistical errors map directly to false positives and false negatives in machine learning.